Hello and welcome to the Success with Savitha podcast, where we share hot tips on how to do life and business without losing your mind. I'm your host, Savitha Nanjappa, entrepreneur, high-achieving 9-to-5er turned transformational success coach, helping you create a wildly successful business. Come hang out with me and other fabulous humans like you every week for stories and chats packed with a healthy dose of tips, resources, how-tos, and real talk. Side effects may include a happier and more confident you with each passing day. Hello and welcome back to the Success with Savitha podcast. I know, yes, it's been a while. It's been 3 months. We've had podcast releases, but it's been 3 months since we've been back on the podcast. But the good news is we are back, and I'm not going to lie, I've really missed you. I miss doing this podcast. And I'm looking forward to what is going to unfold for us in the year ahead. With that, can you believe it already? It's the middle of March as I'm recording this. And I can't believe that we're almost through the first quarter of the year. So let's get started. Let's not waste time. Let's get started. I want to share with you today life updates, podcast updates, business updates. A lot's been going on in the last 3 months. All good. Let me start with what's been happening on the life front for the last 3 months. So every year in the last 6 years since I've started the business, the first year was struggle to take time off because I was building. But over a period of time, I've learned to build enough space around the way I work with my work hours, all of that, enough to last year, 2022, implement weekends off. And then 2023, I was able to take a longer summer break. Otherwise, I would do holidays, but it would be a week, 10 days, max 10 to 12 days. But for the first time in 2023, I took off for almost 4 weeks. And then now in December, I decided to take some more time off for many reasons. But there was a milestone family birthday. Family was visiting. We had some travels together as a family. So all interesting stuff happening. And I really wanted to be free from having to think about work or take calls on the go, which is what I would do earlier, that I would actually continue to do my coaching calls even when I'm traveling, just schedule it around the activities. So this time I took a full stop, and I think mid-December is when I took off till almost the 20th of Jan, which is a long time to be taking off. But it's not going to be something that I'm going to be doing all the time. So that's on the personal front. Coming back to work was harder after taking the break because I didn't get into that New Year buzz of new year, new me, diving in and start to hustle, which I didn't do. However, work has been great because our B2B business towards the end of last year, our B2B business really took off in terms of the number of workshops I was doing, the coaching contracts that I was bringing in. So we do have a couple of big clients, a few big clients that we are working with for their leadership team, coaching for their leadership team. And that was something that was unexpected and quite unplanned actually, because I've always been focused on startups, founders, the business segment. And this space is something that was not really one of my strategic goals at all. However, opportunity is an opportunity, and it's really opened up into something way bigger. And it was the right time. It was the right time and right phase and season in my business. That's on business. That's kept me busy onboarding clients, getting our contracts in, getting things going. And because I'm doing these large contracts for the first time, where I'll be working with people for 6 months at a stretch, I need to give it my full attention. Having said that, the podcast hasn't taken a setback because of any of these things. It's for entirely different reasons that I haven't been on the podcast, and I'm going to share that with you now. So for a while now, I have been thinking about podcasting. And some of the questions that I've had to ask myself, very honest questions that I've had to ask myself is, like, is this podcast like every other podcast, which is interview-based, which is just talking to people, and are you really adding value to your audience? That was a big question for me, because at some point during the last year, I felt like I was just doing these interviews and I wasn't really sure if the audience liked it. That was one. Second, I needed this time to reevaluate the direction of the podcast. Okay. Where are we going? What's the strategy? We've done this for 3 years. What's happening? What are analytics saying? Is our audience growing the way that they ought to have been growing? Is the listenership growing? All of these things were hard questions that I had to ask myself, which I think I wasn't kind of prepared to answer until now, but I think the start of the year is always a great time to do it, which is why it gave me enough time to take some time off to ask myself, A, do I want to do this? The answer, as you can hear from my voice today, is yes, I want to do it. It's a passion project. There is no money involved here. I don't make anything of this, but it is a content channel that we have in the business. It is something that I like doing. It's a medium that I love. And therefore, the answer is yes, I like doing it. Is it fun for me to do it? Because I always ask clients this, it's great. You may love to do it. Is it giving you back value? Either are you making money off it? In my case with the podcast, I don't make money off it, but that's not why I do it. There is a return on investment in other ways, because it can lead to lead gen, it can lead to interest, it can lead to, building your brand, it can lead to connections too. So the return on investment is not monetary, but is in a number of different ways. And people get to hear me even before they want to hire me. So sometimes, when I'm talking to clients, I'm like, hey, listen to me speak on this topic. And it really leads to conversion for me. So that's really so monetization, not really something that I worry too much about, because it feeds off into the business. However, the other reason is I'm having fun doing this. And at some point last year, I started to not have fun doing this. And let me explain why. One thing that happened was, when the podcast launched in 2021, that was the time that I had to email every guest, the people that I had on my wish list. I would email, ask them, follow up with them, ask them to come on the show. And there were many, many, many guests. 95% of the guests say no, or they don't respond. But 5% I got really lucky with who said yes. There were people I knew, of course, on that among the guests that I have had on the show. But those were personal connections. There were work connections. There were people who've been, people that I worked with in the past, who've been clients in the past. However, there were also many people who were absolute strangers who said yes, right? So there were lucky breaks. But getting guests is a challenge, as any podcaster would know. And that tide turned over the last year. A lot of PR agencies started reaching out to me, pitching their guests, and really high-profile guests. Now, I'm very particular about my guest selection. I'm always saying there has to be some parameters that I look at, including that, A, they have to have a business. We are a business podcast. They have to be an entrepreneur, or they need to have some kind of skill set that can help other entrepreneurs grow. And fine, 10% of that guest list that comes to us are people who've achieved something in their life, are motivational, are inspiring, and that's 10%. But 90% of the guests who come on board are entrepreneurs who built a business, who raised funding, who are scaling their businesses, who have something to teach, are early stage entrepreneurs. And those are the kind of guests that we are looking for, because that's who can add value to our audience. I'm not saying that we won't be doing topics or other topics that lead to success, including mindset, growth, and manifestation, habits, and rituals. All of these are as important. So it has to be in one of these areas that we pick and choose guests with. But what started to happen over last year is, while I was getting pitched guests, not all of them would fall into this category. And those who did, it started to really build up. And then a lot of the PR agencies started to kind of put a lot of pressure on me, pushing me to do interviews, even when I didn't want to, pushing me to give them, for the kind of, they wanted content control, pushing me to give them a bunch of videos, all kinds of stuff. But what I started to feel was very overwhelmed with the pressure to bring on these guests. And I was constantly being pitched. And at some point, I felt like I'm only doing all of these shows just for the PR agencies. Whereas the people that I wanted to bring on, I actually had so many lined up and backed up that I didn't have enough time to bring on those other guests that I needed to bring on because I was so busy with the PR guests. So I put a stop to that and I said, look, I can't do this and I've got to take a pause, because I don't even know if I'm doing these interviews because these are great guests to have and I would love to have them. But are people really liking it? Which brings me to, I know I spoke about how on the podcast I I need to reevaluate the strategy. I need to ask myself the hard questions. I knew at this point that the interviews were really getting out of control, and there were a number of guests that were being pitched to me, and I've started to feel overwhelmed. We don't monetize this podcast in any way, but I still need to look at the analytics, and analytics was saying something a little different. Yes, when we brought on a big name guest, like for 100 episode, when we brought on Nitin Kamath, we did have great downloads, and the audience listenership went up. But it wasn't true for every episode. What also equally brought in the listenership or brought in people listening into the podcast was my solo podcasts, like this one, like where I'm talking to you heart to heart. People love this. I know why they love it. It's not because they love hearing my voice or, I have something really fabulous to share. Maybe I do. I'll let you be the judge of that. But the reason is also, when you look at analytics, we all know that, everyone who's a podcast listener, if you had to choose between a 45-minute episode or an hour-long episode versus a 10-minute episode, you're going to choose the 10-minute episode because you're timing it for your workout, for your walk, for your drive, whatever, right? Because everybody is doing something else while they are listening to a podcast. And therefore, that's why solo episodes do really well. And I was seeing this in the data and the numbers. And whereas on the other hand, with the PR, I needed to now also we have to understand that the podcast landscape has changed. It's no more just purely audio, but everybody's using video content. So if I'm shooting an interview, I need to shoot video so that it can actually create content for the social media platforms. And this helps promote the podcast. Of course, I know that. Now, my challenge was, because I don't monetize, bringing in a video team was costing me a lot more per episode. And this led me to my next question, that if I want to do interviews, I need to do videos. And therefore, I need to hire an in-house video team to make it more affordable for me. To hire an in-house video team, which is what now I'm trying out a few, and I'm going to see who's going to be my long-term intern or long-term hire in terms of the video team. So that's something that I've decided to bring them on. So going forward, as much as possible, if I'm in the same town as my guests, we are going to be able to do video. I'm going to really explore and see when I go to other cities like Mumbai, how we're going to pull this off. Which also brings me to the other part, that I need to listen to data and more solo. So you're going to be getting a lot of that as we continue. So what's the plan for 2024 is to have video interviews, more content of that being shared on our social platforms. My solo podcast episodes, which do well, more of that, have bonus episodes, have new packaging, new theme music, new intros, outros, all of that. And of course, to now go and try to get sponsorships and brand partners who will then help support the growth of this podcast. And it helps to put all of that, if I can monetize and put all of that back into creating high quality content, nothing like it, because that's going to add value to every listener who's coming on. There are some people who are watching a video, and there's some people who are watching just sound bites, and there's some people who are listening to the whole audio. So I've got to cater to all of these different listeners and viewers. And that's really where my thought is on in terms of how we're going to move ahead with the podcast. But we're back, and I'm going to be doing more of this. And I have a lot to share in the upcoming episode. So look out for me. Let me know what you think of this episode, the style of episode. Share with me in the DMs. Go tag me on social media. Share this on your social media if you can. It'll be a massive help. And yes, I'm going to pitch very hard to all of you to start giving me those ratings. Leave me some comments. Leave me leave me reviews, which is going to help fuel the growth of this podcast, because it's time for us to grow. It's time for the next level. And with that, we come to the end of this episode. I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode and you want more, you can go to the show notes on my website, which is successwithsavitha.com/podcast. If you like what you've heard so far, I would be grateful to you if you could leave me a 5-star review, subscribe to this podcast, and share with a friend who may find this useful. You can also follow me on my Instagram @successwithsavitha and DM me any questions you may have, and I will be happy to answer them for you. Until the next episode, believe in yourself and all the best to your success.